You know, when it comes to the title Lethal Love, I love it in the context of a romantic thriller, right? It kind of sets the illustration right off the bat for the dynamic of the relationship you often find at the center of this type of genre within their plots of the films that might fall under that line. However, and I wouldn't be necessarily as critical if this were coming from two different studios and they had two different projects that were titled in a similar or the same way, but from the same studio. And this is now the second time I've mentioned this with Marvista Entertainment. One time is enough. We've had Lethal Love Letter, which I liked, and then we had Lethal Love, which also was alternatively titled Family Seductions. I would have gone with that. And similar to the last movie, we have another film that has an alternative title, but instead they went with Lethal Love Triangle. So we had the third Lethal Love movie from Marvista in under a year's period. It's kind of funny. This one's alternative title was A Criminal Affair, and while I think that one's not necessarily as direct, it's a better differentiation when you have three different films that all start with Lethal Love. It's really funny. Anyway, it still sounds like a charming romantic thriller. Again, I've covered Marvista extensively on this channel. For those of you who might not be familiar, they're primarily a TV film distributor, notably within the thriller space. But they've done a couple other genres, holiday releases, family films, rom-com. They've done some purely romantic films. Their mainstay is romantic thrillers. And I do like watching these. They're still good movies, despite me also being very critical. I'm sure by many of you who follow this channel long enough know exactly who I'm talking about when I refer to Marvista. This is the studio that, to this day, continues to spoil their movie trailers. So they've taken, in this case, a 87-minute movie, and they boil it down to 3 minutes to give away all the major plot points and the major twists. It's irritating, but it's funny. Anyway, I mean, I still watch the films. It's just kind of like, well, for somebody who may not be necessarily as open to watching a film like that, if they've already seen the trailer as I am, it kind of defeats the purpose of the marketing, right? You want to be like, okay, here's what you'll see in the film. We want you to watch the full 87 minutes and not necessarily watch a condensed version in 3. But yeah, we continue to find ourselves at this point with the studio. But it sounds, I mean, this one does look interesting, at least from a plot standpoint. I will say, Daniel West, the director in this case, and one of the writers, seems to have some prowess with this genre by now, at least some experience if you look at his filmography. He's done several projects for Marvista, including some that are fairly recent, notably Killer Stepmom, but he's done other ones we looked at the past, actually very recently, Malicious Motives, Hostage House, Killer Competition. That's the one about the cheerleaders, right? No, that's Top of the Class. Okay. Again, Marvista has too many films that run together. But, I mean, he's done quite a bunch of films, it looks like, from the roster I'm familiar with them being Marvista titles. Let's go ahead and take a look and see maybe the distinguishing element to Lethal Love Triangle, which it's going to need that, considering that this is a third entry of Lethal Love in the title. This is what it says according to IMDb, the main synopsis. Two students become engrossed with their handsome research subject until his true nature puts them in harm's way. Well, on the one hand, you're like, well, maybe it's the fault of these women, because they're like, okay, wait a minute. You think of, well, I speak from this because of my familiarity with, because I'm one of my majors is psychology, actually, so I'm very familiar with the ethics when it goes into science and scientific study or research studies. You're not really supposed to become infatuated with your research subjects. I mean, I think that might compromise the integrity of the study. I mean, maybe that depends on what the substance of it is. Maybe the whole point is to fall in love with those of the project. I doubt it, but maybe they should have picked a different pool of study, or at least for this one individual, because there's some dark motives at play. Again, familiar territory for Marvista, but let's see how it plays out here, and maybe, for once, we'll have a trailer that isn't all filled with spoilers. We're going to go ahead and watch the main trailer for Lethal Love first. Lethal Love Triangle. Do you see how confusing this is? We're going to talk about it more in my condensed review segment. Phone is watching the video together. You should have gone with A Criminal Affair, even if maybe I think there's a better title out there for this than that. Maybe something more science-esque, or to bring in the research component. Any differentiation for past films we've looked at, again, under a year's period is good. Without further ado, here we go. Let's take a look at this. Because some people might look at this and be like, haven't I already seen this film from Marvista? I mean, it's been so confusing as well. I noted previously of Lethal Love, they mixed up the trailers, and I don't think they've changed it still to this day. They re-uploaded Lethal Love Letter, and then called it Lethal Love. I'm like, again, it seems confusing to the point that the studio can't even get it straight. All right. Here we go. Let's take a look at this.
study of the deviant criminal mind reveals they look just like us. Which brings me to the key assignment of this course. In pairs...
Well, I mean, factoring in, a guy with darker motives into a study of, criminality in regard to the psychological mindset.
I found him.
That's an interesting layer.
James Heller was found guilty of murdering Bruce and Robin McCord. Heller continues to claim his innocence.
Oh, is this sort of like they bite off more than they can chew?
Convicted man declaring his innocence. He's perfect, right? Is this because he's hot? It doesn't hurt.
Hello, Heller. I'm Julie Monroe, and this is Aaron Valdez. We have copies of your biographical information.
If that's anything like the police investigation, it's going to be all wrong.
You're still professing your innocence.
I am.
Cole James Heller was released from prison today.
12 years ago, he was innocent.
Guess he was telling the truth. It is sort of weird, though, the timing, don't you think?
Oh my God, Cole!
I'll be in town for the next few days, so you guys want to come by?
Stay away from Cole Heller.
Who's your friend?
It's just me.
Something tells me they won't.
Should I be?
I'm Detective Aaron Booker. I know Cole's case better than anybody.
See? Obviously
I
not.
have no idea who Cole was.
I don't think Heller is as innocent as he wants you to believe.
Hey, it's Aaron. You know what to do. Aaron, the detective from Cole's case came here. He thinks Cole isn't innocent. So if you're with him, leave.
Too late.
She didn't answer my calls or texts.
I mean, in reality, this would be a horrible experience, but
That's blood.
Oh my
completely avoidable.
Don't leave town.
You're not going to arrest him?
I've got no hard evidence.
Cole Heller is very charming, and sometimes deceptively so.
Dr. Stone studied the criminal mind for years. She knows all about manipulation.
You.
You should consider leaving town.
Get out.
Don't look at me like that.
We're well beyond the threshold for what would constitute, well, maybe, I mean, still, if they even had a trailer that weren't as direct with the spoilers, there'd be a couple plot points that would at least be foreshadowed. But this still goes a step too far. You're like, well, maybe you could have kept some of the events, for what follows up. I mean, I think it would have been more creative if you had left it in the context of the trailer. Going in. And I know that these films, when Marvista tends to put up these trailers, they tend to be after the fact, which is still really weird. Like, why wouldn't you put up a main trailer before this airs on the official channel? And maybe that's more so the responsibility of the networks that these films premiere on, because this one apparently released last year on August 8th, and who distributed it besides Marvista? Lifetime. Maybe Lifetime did put this on. I didn't see it. Well, normally they don't. That's kind of weird. Maybe it's Lifetime's fault. But somebody needs to put these trailers up in advance without the spoilers. Because for somebody like me who might go and watch this film later on, primarily you've had a couple films that feature, well, actually a lot on Tubi, the free streaming service with ads. But you've also had, again, the TV networks that these air on. But I'm usually being after the fact. Netflix has carried a few. Maybe Hulu's carried a couple, I think, if I remember this right. So for the prospective person who might, want to watch a thriller but might not have broadcast TV, as is the case for many people now, including myself, you think you'd leave the trailer at least a little more jaded in regard to the elements that you give away. I do think this goes a bit too far. You could have left it at the point of, well, maybe he's innocent, maybe he's guilty. I don't know. Either way, these girls might be in danger. On the one hand, I'm still kind of watching this trailer. I mean, this is familiar Marvista territory. I did like the psychological aspect, though, in regard to you have two women that are involved in a scientific study, and they think this would be the greatest asset to our research is to study the criminal mind from a behind the walls of incarceration perspective. I mean, I do like that, and I've seen that type of story before to different extents. I mean, not necessarily this level, but there's just a couple shows, at least maybe I'm forgetting right off the top of my head, but they ring a bell. And the one level, I think, it's a good study in terms of, for us, and being well, when you conduct a scientific study or a research study, still keep in mind the element of professionalism. And all of that would be completely avoided in regard to, you become, well, I mean, maybe this happens on a more regular basis. Sometimes you have people that will dive into criminal psychology, I guess is that the term for it, and they'll study the mind of people who have committed sometimes minor infractions or heinous acts, and they might start falling under the spell of manipulative and charming individuals. at that case, your inner sense should be telling you, like, I need to get out of this situation before I end up romantically involved with this person. And, like, at that point, like, you've gone too far. There's probably, like, sort of no turning back at this point. Because, I mean, there's going to be a whole bunch of broken hearts all around. You, of course, on fault of your own actions. And then, of course, for the individual, I'm sure, who, in this case, will probably not get his way, knowing Marvista territory. It's just the way it goes. I mean, I do like that layer. I think in the one level, it's kind of like, it's a clever piece of advocacy for the rest of us out there, being like, when you do research, this is not what you do. So, like, I like it. I mean, it looks like, I'll probably enjoy it, even if I think it still went a bit too far in regard to the marketing. I've watched, films from Marvista post covering their trailers. I, again, think I've explored the films way too much. Fallen Queen, notably, and I liked that one. So maybe Lethal Love Triangle will be good, although they should have picked another title, because this is going to get really confusing. Like, if I'm going to have to refer back to this in the future, I know I'm going to mix this up probably with Lethal Love Letter, now we have Lethal Love Triangle. It's too many Lethal Love. If they do this again, I don't know. I mean, never throw anything beyond the realm of Marvista, but that would just be absolutely hysterical. What are your guys? I hope they do, because it gives us something to laugh at, actually. That's counterintuitive, because I'm kind of like, well, on the one hand, I wanted to change this and improve, but then on the other hand, it would just be way too funny. What are your guys' thoughts with Lethal Love Triangle? Let me know down below. Don't forget all the good stuff. Like, subscribe with the sharing, hitting that bell. Until we get to look at more Marvista films in the future, because on this channel, we absolutely will. I keep, prodding them, being like, are you going to, give us a spoiler-free trailer? Are you not? And it never changes. So, at the very least, it's partly, these films still look very competent, and some of maybe they're not so much. It's kind of iffy again when it comes to, like, TV films, but there's an element of comedy in regard to, you really don't know how to fix your formula or properly market a new movie, do you? I'll see you guys at whatever point that happens to be we get to look at Marvista again, or something else entirely. But for now, thanks for watching this video. I love you guys. Don't forget to love yourselves and your fellow man. God bless. Peace.